I'm going to just give you a brief rundown on intellectual property law. And intellectual property rights fall into a number of categories, which are most importantly copyright, patents and trade secrets. Also trademarks, that's not so important though. So copyright is the most obvious form of protection of computer software, and it's probably the easiest one to not accidentally infringe, because it really does involve copying word for word pretty much, or making an adaptation of something, and you can't easily do it accidentally. So the fact that Linux may work in much the same way as Unix, which it does, I mean that's the whole point, that in itself isn't a ground of complaint under copyright law for SCO. It can't do anything about that. If anything, it can complain about that under patent law or something else, but not under copyright law. And even assuming that there is identical code in the Linux kernel and Unix, and assuming that the Unix code hasn't been freely licensed for us to use in the Linux kernel, that may indicate that there's been an infringement of copyright, but it doesn't necessarily indicate that there has been. A couple of reasons for that. Firstly, simple functions that can only be written in one way can't really have copyright protection. If there's only one way you can write something, then you can't stop someone else from writing it in the same way, even if it is sort of copied. And so an example of that is these BSD header files that they've been complaining about. I mean, Linus has said, yeah, that looks a lot similar to yours, but I wrote it myself, and how else would you have expected me to write it? It's just a coincidence. And in fact, some code may even be so simple that it doesn't attract copyright protection to begin with. If something is just trivial, then there's no copyright protection in it anyway. So the PowerPoint slides may be the same, doesn't necessarily mean there's been a copyright infringement. Okay, that's copyright. It protects the expression of ideas. It doesn't actually protect the ideas themselves. It's like a book. If you copy the ideas in a book, but give them new names and new settings and stuff like that, as long as you're not copying the words, that's normally okay, and it's the same with software. Patents, I'll skip to trade secrets first, and then I'll go back to patents. Trade secrets are unlike copyright law in that they can protect ideas rather than just the expression of the ideas. And trade secrets law has been developed by judges over hundreds of years. It's not actually written down in a statute book. It basically says if you've been given information in confidence, then you have to respect that confidence. And sometimes, as in IBM's case, the trade secrets obligation has a contract line behind it that says we're going to keep this confidential, but it doesn't have to. Even if you don't have a contract, you can still have a duty of confidentiality under trade secrets law. And so it's got an advantage. It's got advantages and disadvantages over other forms of protection. The advantage is, main advantage, like I say, is that it can protect ideas rather than just the expression of ideas. The main disadvantage, I guess, is that unlike copyright protection, the intellectual property owner can lose the protection that they've got if they allow their trade secrets to become known to the public. So you've got to keep it confidential if you want it to remain confidential. Patents are similar to a statutory form of trade secrets rights. I guess there are two main differences. One of them is that patents are only available to protect new and innovative products and processes. Not just any secret information, they've got to be innovative. And the second difference is that patents prevent the public at large from making use of the information rather than just preventing the particular people who received the information in secret. And it doesn't matter if the information is known to the public, the obligation still remains to not infringe the patent rights. So that's the main difference there. In Australia, patents last for 20 years, or sometimes 8 years, depending on what type they are. And although that's a long time, it's obviously less than copyright, and so we do have copyright protection still over the Unix code, but not patent protection over all of it. Yeah.
What's the difference?
Well, ordinary patents are 8 years, and then there's a form of lesser patents in Australia that you can get without having to go through the same amount of red tape, and that lasts for 8 years. But if you go for a full patent, whether it's for software or not, you get 20 years. It didn't used to be that you could get patents for software, but over the last few years, it's become clear that you can, and so it's exploded, and there's patents being granted all over the place here and America and to some extent in Europe. And so I won't go into that because that's another whole kettle of fish, but software patents, obviously, there's a bit of controversy about them. to put it mildly. The advantage of patents, the main advantage of patents, is that it stops people from using the intellectual property even accidentally. I mean, you can infringe a patent accidentally, and that's the big difference. And the only real disadvantage of patents for the intellectual property owner is that they're costly and they take time, and you've got to take out patents separately in every country of the world that you want to have protection, unlike copyright, which is pretty much international automatically. So those are the disadvantages of patents, but there are some big advantages there as well in protecting the ideas behind the software. The final form of intellectual property protection, which I'm not really going to go into, is trademarks. That's not so relevant. It's slightly relevant in that SCO doesn't actually own the trademark Unix. That's owned by the Open Group, and so they're actually, the rights they do have aren't the complete rights to Unix. It's bits and pieces here and there, pretty much, and not including the name.